Hello, Matthew. My name is Devin, and I'm a nutrition student in the Introduction to Nutrition Counseling at the University of Houston.
Hello.
This is my assignment in which I am practicing being a nutritional counselor. Do you give me permission to videotape this assignment?
Yes.
Do you give me permission to show this videotape to the class?
Also, yes.
3 of my classmates, possibly 1 dietetic intern, and my instructor might also see and grade this video. Is that permissible?
Yes.
Excellent. All right, let's get started. Well, how are you doing this morning?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Not too bad. It's bright and early. Thanks for coming in this early.
You're welcome.
Before we get started, I just wanted to go over a little bit of your background. We talked on the phone last week about your concerns with hypertension, weight loss, and your health overall.
Yes.
Tell me, what is it that I can help you with today?
So, for a while I have been diagnosed with high blood pressure, so on a logical level, that should be my main focus. But I've been diagnosed with it for a while, so it's kind of been out of sight, out of mind for me. And I suppose I'm bringing it up because I'm also kind of starting to get concerned about weight gain, or rather, wanting to lose weight. So, kind of figure it's a good time to get on board the whole proper diet and, exercise wagon. So that's, I guess, why I'm here. I've tried a couple things in the past on my own, but nothing really seems to take, so I figure maybe get someone that would have a bit more knowledge on that than I do.
Right, sure, absolutely. That's excellent. So, let's do a little bit of your background.
Sure.
How tall are you?
5'9".
5'9". And about how much do you think you weigh?
About 185.
185. And has that been, have you been pretty consistent in your weight? Have you seen fluctuations recently, or?
It's hard to say just because I don't really routinely get medical checkups, so I don't have a good measurement through time. As far as recently, I definitely do feel that it has gone up in the last, say, 2 or 3 years versus what my normal standard was before that.
Okay, which was?
For the longest time, I was kind of a skinnier kid growing up, so, like I said, I don't really know what my standard would have been, but at 185 now, I would like to be like at a 165.
Right, you just feel different. Okay.
Yeah. I guess I kind of measure it in my pant size. So.
And do you know your blood pressure by any chance?
I do not.
Okay. But you do know you do have high blood pressure?
Yes.
So probably...
I did have it a few years ago, or several years ago, I did have my blood work done, and I had high blood pressure, and my mom, who's a nurse, has kind of periodically checked up on my blood pressure over the years, and it has still maintained a high blood pressure count.
So, going back to your weight history, you were always on the smaller side, thinner side.
Yes.
And you've just recently noticed weight gain.
Yes.
When about did that happen? During college?
No, during college I was still very thin, still very active. I would definitely say I turned 30 this year. It was probably sometime after 26.
Okay.
So.
And you were pretty active in college. What was your physical activity level? What were you?
Oh, I played
team sports or something?
Yeah, I played a lot of sports with friends. We played racquetball probably 4 or 5 days a week.
That's fun.
For an hour or 2 a day. So.
Yeah, pretty active.
Yes.
And now today, are you still physically active?
I've been getting back into it. Exercise has been kind of one of those things where I haven't necessarily always made time for it. It was more if I would do it if I had time.
Right.
But now I'm being more conscious about making the time for exercise. So I would say within the last 2 to 3 months or so, I've been trying to exercise at least half an hour a day.
Oh, that's pretty good. Yeah, it's recommended at least 2 hours and 30 minutes a week. So it's about 5 days, 30 minutes each of elevated, moderate to physical activity. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
So for your family history, do you have just high blood pressure run in your family? Do you have any diseases that you're aware of?
So I'm not necessarily aware of any familial diseases. I can say, obviously, probably the biggest thing that would be concerning from a family medical history was that My dad did suffer a stroke in his late 40s, which led to his passing. And obviously, strokes can be related to high blood pressure, so that's definitely something that, in a sense, might have been why I put it out of mind, but is also, at the same time, why I'm concerned about it as I'm growing older.
Right. I'm so sorry to hear about that. Thank you for telling me.
And then on the other side, at least from my parents, my mom is actually probably medically underweight and might also have anemia. So I guess it's kind of both ends of the spectrum there.
Okay.
But typically for my family, there does seem to be a history of being overweight.
Okay. So walk me through a typical day of yours. Do you start with breakfast and then head to work, or are you just on the go constantly?
Typically, I will get to work and have breakfast at some point, usually about an hour or two after arriving at work. I do work 2 jobs, so that can kind of fluctuate when that hour is. Sometimes I'd say it's usually sometime between 6 o'clock and 9:30 that I'll have breakfast, which seems like a wide window now that I'm saying that out loud. But, when you work 2 jobs, you try to find as much routine as you can, but, your options are a little limited in that.
Right. All right, so after breakfast around 6 to 9:30, do you have a snack before lunch?
Yeah, typically I would try to have a snack, or not necessarily try to have a snack, I suppose I should say. Try to avoid having a snack. But yeah, I'll have a snack usually since my lunch won't come until about 1 or 2.
Okay.
So sometime during the day, probably around 11 or 12, I'll usually find myself a little bit hungry but not able to take my hour lunch at work. In which case I will just head down to, say, the Starbucks and typically grab something quick, which is usually grabbing something sweet.
Ooh. So, do you prefer sweet foods?
I do have a sweet tooth.
Okay.
It's something I've been working on getting better about, so, part of why I'm seeing you.
Excellent. So you said you do have about an hour lunch break if you do have a lunch that day. Do you go to work? Do you typically work twice a day, both jobs, or are you just going right after your first? Are you going?
My primary job, which I work 5 days a week, does give me an hour lunch every day. On that, I would say my lunch is usually either, depending on whether I'm opening or closing, it'll be at either 2 or it'll be at 5:30.
Okay.
Which I guess isn't really lunch at that point; it becomes dinner. So I just need to make sure I've had at least something before I go into work on those days.
Right. And then what time do you normally get home in the evening?
I normally get home if I'm opening at my main job at about 5:30 to 6, and if I'm closing at around 10 to 10:30.
So there's a big difference from day to day. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Do you find that it's challenging you in picking foods that you think would be better for you, or you just...
I would definitely say so, especially with closing, like I said, in a sense, because my lunch would normally be at 2 o'clock, but if I'm closing, then I have to eat something before I go into work, which would put it at more like 11 o'clock. And then my final meal while I'm at work would be at about 5:30. Which does leave the possibility of me being hungry after work.
Right, especially if you're getting home 10:30, 11 o'clock at night.
And that's what usually would lead to a quick fast food stop because it's late at night. I don't want to make anything, but I'm also hungry enough that I should eat something. So convenience kind of wins out on that one.
So you mentioned you work 2 jobs.
Yes.
Do you work just 5 days a week, or are you working every day?
I work about every day.
Okay.
In a given week, probably about 60 hours of just working, not including travel time.
Okay.
Or breaks or anything like that. So.
And how much are you in the car for travel time?
Probably about an hour a day.
Hour a day. Okay.
If not more.
Sometimes, it's traffic.
Oh, it depends if I'm working both jobs. So
right.
2 days a week, that can be up to an hour and a half.
So, you mentioned earlier that you are pretty physically active. You try to work out about 30 minutes a day. How is that incorporated into this day, typically?
Typically, it's been in like when I've been getting especially more focused on it. I try to, if I'm closing, find the time to go after work, or
Okay.
if I'm not working both jobs, I can try to do it in the morning beforehand.
So just really whenever you can.
It's
fit
just
it into
it's
your
just
schedule.
whenever it fits into the schedule, pretty much. I mean, I suppose that the benefit is, at least with both jobs, neither of them is just sitting around all day. They both incorporate a lot of moving around, so
Right.
I do get at least active from the work itself.
Okay, so you're not sedentary working at a desk.
Yeah.
Excellent. And for your exercise, what do you typically do? Are you weightlifting? Are you
Primarily focused on cardiovascular. Again, taking into account, the high blood pressure and the weight. I think that that's just the best targeted approach currently for the results that I want. So I'm not necessarily against the idea of building muscle mass, but first I'm more concerned about burning fat and, strengthening the heart muscle.
Right, okay. And your goals were to lower your blood pressure, weight loss, and to strengthen your heart.
Yes.
Okay, excellent. And I know you mentioned this previously, but why now?
I would say that it's just, like I said, there's been some more obvious effects that it's had on my life. Like the weight gain has been more noticeable to me lately, and so turning 30 is kind of making it a, hey, I really should be doing something about this, kind of a wake-up call. Plus, as I've been trying to do it on my own, it hasn't necessarily been successful. There's been a lot of yo-yoing where I would do really good one day and then really poorly the next day, or I would have a lot of good success and overly reward myself.
Okay.
And then again, also, if you try to be, like when I try to be overly regimented about it and really have like a very strict plan, and then once that something goes wrong with that plan, then the entire thing just collapses.
Okay. Which is understandable. It's hard to be so restrictive.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's just I'm having difficulty doing it myself.
Okay.
So I figure find someone to assist me as kind of a guidance, a guiding force, so that I'm not just like lost at sea trying to figure out how to become healthy.
Right. Sure. Absolutely. I totally get where you're coming from. So in the past, have you tried other diets? Has anything, it just hasn't worked for you, or your schedule just hasn't allowed it to work for you?
I wouldn't say necessarily that I've tried diets in a sense, so much as better dieting.
Changes. Okay.
There was a while where I was doing a lot of fruit and a lot of vegetables, but the prep time that kind of went into that ended up being more than I could handle while working two jobs. So again, that was one of those, had a system in place that was really successful until it stopped being successful, and then it just went away entirely.
Okay. So you were meal prepping, meaning you were making all your meals on Sunday and having them ready for the week?
Yes.
Or, okay.
Yeah.
It is pretty time consuming, so carving out that time in your busy schedule might be a little difficult. Do you typically cook at home?
No.
No. Okay.
I'm not a cook.
Do you bring any meals with you during the day?
Yes.
Sometimes.
I try to, and again, this goes back to the when it's successful, and when it's not, it falls apart. I try to bring a lunch with me to work. Typical things like a sandwich, some low-fat chips, fruit bar, what have you. And I try to bring one of those, like bring the lunch to work so that I have that and drink water while I'm, on lunch. But in the instances where I don't have time to make a lunch, well, I work at a mall.
Oh.
And so mall food becomes the alternative, which isn't notoriously healthy, to my understanding.
But is this working for you? No, because you're ready for this change. You're ready to move.
Exactly.
Right. Okay. That's excellent. I noticed you did bring your 24-hour recall with you. Do you mind if we take a look at it? So on here you have listed what you ate. Do you drink with your meals? Do you have coffee in the morning? Glass of juice?
So typically, as far as what I drink, and again, this is more recently.
Okay.
I've been trying to have like water or tea as my primary drinks throughout the day. Something that's low calorie or 0 calorie. And admittedly, I think part of that focus has been on, again, the weight loss, things that I can control with relative ease.
Sure, absolutely.
But yeah, every now and then it'll be like a glass of milk as well, just depending on what I'm eating and where I'm eating it. So.
Yeah, it looks like you're hitting all the major groups. There's not very many vegetables on here.
Yes.
That's all right.
They seem to be very difficult to come by in the quick and convenient sense.
That's very true. Very true. So would incorporating a meal at home, either dinner or lunch, packing it with you, having something ready for you, is that an option that you're looking towards adding?
Yes.
Okay.
Preferably right now, obviously, like, convenience is not necessarily king, but it is something that is a factor.
Right.
So, like, fortunately, I don't necessarily mind the taste of raw vegetables, so at least there's that. But, as far as, like, making meals at home, if you had recommendations about simple meals to make that are kind of quick, easy, but also healthy.
Sure.
That would definitely be something that I would be more inclined toward rather than things that take a lot of time to put together.
Okay. So. And before we move on, I was going to suggest something. How are your energy levels currently?
I feel pretty energized.
Okay.
I can wake up very quickly. From when the alarm goes off, I can usually be up and attentive and ready to do what I need to do within 10 minutes. I can, continue to go throughout the day. So, I don't feel that running low on energy is an issue for me. I don't feel tired or overly exerted very much. Possibly stressed, but I think that might be the two jobs more than the actual.
Pretty busy.
Yeah.
Okay. So what I wanted to suggest to you was was the DASH diet. DASH diet is a dietary approach to stop hypertension. And even though you aren't diagnosed with hypertension yet, I would suggest that you go see your cardiologist just to have a checkup and a full physical, just in case. Just do a whole workup, just for precautionary.
It's admittedly something I've been putting off, so that's
okay.
I appreciate the advice.
Yeah, absolutely. But the DASH diet is helpful for lowering blood pressure. Okay. And just because you do have high blood pressure, meaning your you can either be consuming high levels of sodium. There's several risk factors that can lead to hypertension, such as obesity. The older we get, the more likely you are to develop hypertension. Smoking will increase your blood pressure. There's several factors. So
I'm confused. Hypertension and high blood pressure, are these different things, or?
Hypertension is chronic blood pressure. So if you have consistently had high blood pressure over a period of time, hypertension is just that elevated state, which is typically 140 over 90 or higher. And we typically want to keep that on the lower side. So you could either have a diet that's high in sodium, a diet that's low in potassium to not counterbalance the sodium in your body. But the DASH diet is not just for hypertension. You can use it for several things. Weight control, long-term and short-term. It can help with diabetes, diagnosis.
Okay.
So I did print this off for you, if you want to look over it. Suggest more fruits and vegetables, 6 to 8 servings of whole grains a day, maybe 6 ounces or less of meats, just really focusing on raw, not necessarily raw, but foods in their natural form, whether it be steamed, grilled, baked, roasted. Just not really trying to focus on, processed convenience foods, because those are going to be a little higher in sodium, especially if you're working at a mall. Those are your options.
And then my other job is at Starbucks.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Everything is sugary or sodium-y, I suppose. I'd have to look
high in sodium.
Yeah,
sure. But if you want to take a look at this, we can talk about it next week when you come back in. If there's any questions you have, I can help you develop simple foods that you can incorporate into your diet, whether it's bringing an apple with you for a snack or packing your own turkey sandwich for lunch, along with a low-fat cheese stick.
I've heard that it's better to do like several smaller meals throughout the day rather than 3 bigger meals. Is this kind of focused toward that, or is this kind of a little bit of...
It's honestly person per person. If
Okay.
you find that eating smaller meals is better for you, by all means, go ahead and do that. Some people, need to have a breakfast, lunch, and dinner with one snack in between.
Yeah.
Or, others just find themselves happier to just be eating when they're hungry, which may translate to being 5 to 6 meals a day.
Okay. Leafy green vegetables. That's probably where I'm weakest.
It's a little difficult to incorporate.
Yes.
So, moving forward, what do you think you would like to see within the next week? What do you think would be an achievable, attainable goal for you?
I would say eating some vegetables as a purposeful decision rather than just there happen to be vegetables
finding
with my
them
meal.
on your plate. Okay.
Exactly. Making an actual effort to have some vegetables each day
Okay.
would be a big one. Other than that, I tend to, like you saw on my 24-hour recall, as you called it, that I generally had a well-balanced thing, but then there was the banana bread that I got. Again, my sweet tooth that I have. I wouldn't necessarily say, it's like you said before, that sometimes you can reward yourself, but if that becomes like a daily thing, as it is for me, maybe making it not a daily thing would be a goal of mine.
Okay.
To replace the high-calorie, high-sugar content with a snack that might be better for me. Maybe vegetables.
Maybe vegetables. Just, okay. So how will that be feasible for you? Do you go grocery shopping? Do you typically...
I try to go grocery shopping, but unfortunately it is kind of one of those things where it's as I have the time or as I have the need,
Okay.
rather than a shopping trip that's done forward thinking. It's usually retroactively thinking, if that makes sense. It's in response to what I've run out of rather than planning ahead. So.
Okay. So I would like to challenge you with that. Do you think that you would be able to plan a trip to the grocery store and able to incorporate more vegetables into your meal? Because your goal was adding vegetables maybe once or twice a day.
Yeah, I would definitely need to go to the grocery store to do that, wouldn't I? Yes.
Yes.
I will make that Yes, I will make an effort to do that.
And by all means, if I wouldn't recommend you to take out all sugary foods or limit yourself excessively, because that's, could be detrimental.
How so?
You could just set yourself up for failure.
Talking about the
sweets.
Try to do a thing so strictly that when it falls apart disastrously.
Yeah. So, what do you think would be an attainable?
Well, like I said, I don't necessarily. I agree with you that some sweets will be okay. I just want to get more into a habit of not incorporating them as a consistent part of the diet, so much as an exception to the diet. Nothing wrong with having some banana bread on occasion, but if it's having it every day, then it might be a problem, So I guess that's where my focus would be on that regard.
All right, so Matthew, it looks like our time's just about up. I will, if you want to go and check with the receptionist, I mean, you can set your plan up for next Thursday or Friday, whichever one works best for you.
Okay.
And is there anything else I can help you with today?
No, I think that should be about it.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for coming in.
And scene. I feel like you give a softer hand.